What if I told you a small African country just brought the billion-dollar diamond industry to its knees? No war, no threats, just one bold move that shocked the world. Botswana has banned all raw diamond exports. Why now? Who's behind it? And could this change Africa's place in the global economy forever? The answers may surprise you, and what's happening behind closed doors might just rewrite history. In a move that sent shockwaves through global markets, Botswana, the world's second-largest diamond producer, has officially banned the export of all raw diamonds and unprocessed minerals. No exceptions. No delays. No more shipping rough stones to be cut and polished in India, Belgium, or Israel. Instead, President Dumaboko's administration announced that every carat must now be refined, processed, and finished within Botswana's borders. The message was clear: Africa would no longer extract value only to watch it disappear overseas. This wasn't just a policy change. It was an earthquake. Mining giants scrambled. Containers full of diamond parcels and copper concentrates were halted at airports and borders. Operations paused. Emergency meetings were called. Foreign investors began releasing vague statements about reviewing logistics. But behind their diplomatic language, one thing was certain: Botswana wasn't bluffing. The new law is sweeping. Whether it's diamonds, nickel, copper, or rare earths, if it isn't processed locally, it's not leaving the country. For a nation whose GDP is nearly 30% dependent on diamond exports, and where over 80% of export earnings come from unprocessed stones, this is a monumental shift. For decades, raw materials from Botswana's rich soil were shipped out within days of extraction. In places like Jwaneng and Orapa, some of the richest diamond mines on Earth produced rough stones that would then travel thousands of kilometers to cutting houses in Surat, vaults in Antwerp, or retailers in New York. Botswana got a fraction of the final value. That model collapsed overnight. The government isn't just playing tough. It's building a new system from scratch. Mining licenses are now tied to local beneficiation. Firms that invest in domestic factories, cutting centers, training programs, or mineral refineries are being rewarded with tax breaks and fast-track permits. Those who resist risk losing their contracts altogether. It's a high-stakes gamble. But it's been brewing for a while. For months, President Bou's inner circle has reportedly studied the failures of Africa's resource strategies, how nations rich in minerals remain poor because they export value in its cheapest form. The conclusion? If Africa wants to be rich, it can't keep shipping poor. Even De Beers, Botswana's longtime partner and the dominant player in the diamond world, acknowledged the shift. Several operations have paused, not due to labor unrest or market crashes, but because Botswana changed the rules. Now, companies must reimagine their entire supply chains. Local cutting and polishing are no longer optional. They're the law. The world is watching. From the World Diamond Council to commodity markets and foreign embassies, reactions range from confusion to admiration to quiet panic. Some fear ripple effects. Others whisper that Botswana is showing Africa what leverage truly looks like. A small, landlocked country has just flipped the table, not with revolution or violence, but with strategy and sovereignty. It isn't begging for respect. It's demanding it. But this leads to the bigger question: why now? What's driving this radical shift? Is it political showmanship, or survival? In the next part, we'll dive deep into the forces that pushed Botswana to the edge, and why this diamond ban might be the only thing standing between the country and collapse. Botswana didn't wake up one morning and decide to defy the global diamond industry. This decision came from pressure, economic, political, and existential. For decades, the country operated within a fragile system. Its entire economy leaned on one commodity, rough diamonds. That system worked as long as prices stayed high and demand kept rising. But by early 2025, cracks had widened into collapse. The value of rough diamonds had plummeted by over 40% in just 18 months. Global buyers shifted. Millennials and Gen Z consumers no longer saw mined diamonds as status symbols. Instead, lab-grown stones, cheaper, cleaner, and chemically identical, flooded the market. In places like New York, London, and Tokyo, natural diamonds were losing their sparkle. And Botswana was exposed. Unlike countries with diversified economies, Botswana's budget, salaries, infrastructure, and currency stability were all tied to diamond exports. When the prices fell, hospitals froze purchases. Schools halted hiring. Development projects stalled. But the deeper problem wasn't the market, it was the model. Botswana exported raw stones and imported finished goods at 10 times the price. It was shipping wealth in its cheapest form and buying it back in its most expensive. For every $100 earned from Botswana's diamonds globally, less than $10 stayed in the country. The rest vanished through foreign processing, branding, and markups. President Dumaboko's team, upon taking office, reviewed the numbers and saw the disaster coming. If they continued business as usual, fiscal collapse wasn't just possible, it was inevitable. So they acted. Not out of ideology, but survival. The export ban wasn't about cutting ties with the world. It was about rebalancing power. Botswana needed to stop being a source and start being a force. But declaring a ban is one thing. Building the infrastructure to support it is another. That's where Botswana's National Processing and Beneficiation Program comes in, a nearly $500 million initiative funded by state mining revenues and African development banks. Its goal, to build Africa's most advanced diamond and copper processing ecosystem. Not in Antwerp. Not in Surat. In Botswana. Construction is underway on 3 economic zones with cutting labs, automated sorters, training centers, and even jewelry design studios. This isn't just about stones, it's about jobs, branding, and national pride. For decades, Botswana dug and watched others profit. Now it's keeping the wealth at home. Chinese and South Korean firms have already signed on to help build modular refineries. These facilities will be partly state-owned to ensure profits stay in the country. Local hiring is mandated. Knowledge transfer is written into contracts. Over 38,000 new jobs are projected in the next 5 years if even 60% of output is processed domestically. But there are challenges. Critics argue Botswana lacks the industrial experience for large-scale transformation. Diamond cutting is a precision craft. It needs electricity, machinery, skilled labor. But the government is moving fast. It launched the Botswana Industrial Skills Academy to train workers and is scaling up solar and hydropower to supply factories. This is not just economic policy, it's nation building. And while Botswana is betting big on its own future, foreign partners are scrambling. De Beers, which once controlled marketing and pricing through joint ventures, is now bound to Botswana's new laws. No more bulk exports. No more monopoly on downstream profits. They must engage with local firms or face exclusion. Across Asia and Europe, supply chains are being rewritten. Contracts, insurance clauses, logistics, everything now must include Botswana's local processing. Some mines have paused operations. Others are trying to pivot. Even unrelated investors are watching closely, wondering if similar models will spread to uranium, coal, or rare earths. Meanwhile, African leaders are paying attention. From the DRC to Namibia, there's talk of similar bans. The African Union has requested a formal review. And that's the twist, while the West recalculates, Africa is reimagining. The question now is no longer, can Botswana do this? It's, what if they succeed? In the next part, we'll explore the international reaction, from panic in Indian cutting hubs to quiet respect in African capitals, and what this means for the future of global trade. The shockwaves from Botswana's diamond export ban didn't stop at its borders. They echoed through boardrooms in London, cutting houses in India, luxury markets in Europe, and political chambers across Africa. In Surat, India, where nearly 90% of the world's diamonds are cut, industry leaders sounded alarms. Jobs were at risk. Shipments stalled. Processing hubs that had long relied on Africa's raw stones suddenly found themselves facing a future of fewer imports and more expensive alternatives. Antwerp's diamond exchanges, once the proud gatekeepers of global luxury, are bracing for reduced supply as Botswana and other African nations rethink their place in the value chain. But while the West scrambles to adapt, something different is happening across Africa. In Lusaka, Kinshasa, and Windhoek, leaders are watching with a mix of curiosity and ambition. If Botswana can force the world to play by new rules, why can't they? The African Union's Commission on Trade has already called for a review of Botswana's strategy, with rumors of a continent-wide summit focused on resource sovereignty. This isn't just a policy shift. It's an ideological transformation. For decades, Africa has been told what its minerals are worth, by others. Now, it's starting to decide for itself. But can this last? Botswana's model is bold, but it walks a tightrope. Infrastructure must scale. Workforce skills must match demand. Power grids must keep up. And most of all, patience must hold. If factories fall behind schedule, or if global companies bypass Botswana in favor of easier markets, the economic consequences could be real. Critics say the country is risking too much. That it could scare off foreign investment. That its ambitions exceed its capacity. But for President Dumaboko and his team, the bigger risk is doing nothing. They believe the age of extraction without transformation is over. The country doesn't just want to dig wealth. It wants to define it. And it's not alone. Several mid-tier mining firms have already begun talks to relocate parts of their operations into Botswana, realizing that partnership, not resistance, is now the only way in. The government isn't closing the door to the world. It's inviting it inside, but on its terms. Joint ventures, profit sharing, local hiring, skills development, these are now the price of access. And instead of being punished for it, Botswana is gaining quiet respect. International backlash, so far, has been minimal. Why? Because the world still needs what Botswana has. Diamonds, copper, nickel, these are not easily replaced. And no matter how much automation or global sourcing evolves, geography still matters. Botswana's stones are among the best in the world. But here's what's truly revolutionary: this isn't just about rocks. It's about identity. Botswana is rewriting its role in the global economy. No longer the compliant supplier. Now, a negotiator. A value creator. A standard setter. The long-standing script where Africa digs and the world profits is being challenged, not by force, but by policy. This is soft power at its sharpest. For African nations that have long felt trapped in cycles of dependency, Botswana's example is a signal flare. It says, we don't have to wait for fairness. We can demand it. And we can build the capacity to back it up. But the road ahead is still uncertain. If Botswana's processing infrastructure stumbles, or if political resolve weakens under pressure, old systems could reassert themselves. If, however, the plan holds, Botswana could become more than a mining country. It could be a manufacturing and branding hub. Imagine walking into a luxury boutique in Paris or Dubai and seeing a necklace labeled not just "Made in Africa," but cut, polished, and designed in Botswana. Imagine seeing African-made copper components in electric cars, smartphones, satellites. That label wouldn't just represent material. It would represent mastery, ownership, pride. That's the future Botswana is betting on. And the rest of the world is watching closely. Will this high-stakes experiment become a blueprint for economic independence across Africa, or will it be remembered as a bold but risky detour? Only time will tell. But one thing is already certain: Botswana has changed the conversation. It has proven that a small country with a clear vision can make the world listen. And in doing so, it may have just sparked the beginning of Africa's next revolution, not with protest, but with production. As Botswana's diamond export ban continues to ripple through the global economy, a deeper shift is taking place, one not just of trade, but of narrative. For decades, Africa has been cast as the world's resource supplier, a continent rich in raw materials but poor in processing power. Botswana's bold policy is breaking that mold, and its consequences are now being felt in places few expected. Global supply chains are being forced to adapt. Logistics contracts are being rewritten. Insurance clauses are being renegotiated. Multinational corporations are having to reconsider their long-standing assumptions, that Africa will dig, and they will profit. This assumption is no longer safe. The world is beginning to realize that Botswana's move is not a one-off anomaly. It may be a preview of what's coming next. Already, other nations are considering similar legislation. In Namibia, the Ministry of Mines has launched a task force to examine downstream beneficiation strategies. In the Democratic Republic of Congo, policymakers are discussing new tax incentives for local processing. And at the African Union, Trade officials are preparing a draft resolution that could encourage continent-wide reforms. But while Africa listens and learns, traditional powerhouses are growing uneasy. The Indian diamond industry, which cuts and polishes nearly 90% of the world's stones, has issued public warnings about job losses if more African nations follow Botswana's example. In Belgium, the prestigious Antwerp diamond exchanges are reporting reduced inflows of rough stones. Their fear isn't just about volume, it's about losing control of pricing, branding, and distribution. For too long, global industries relied on a predictable model: raw materials from Africa, value creation elsewhere. That model is now under pressure. But inside Botswana, something else is happening. There's a growing sense of national pride, a belief that the country is no longer a pit to be emptied, but a platform to be built upon. Factories are rising. Vocational schools are expanding. And young people are beginning to see opportunity not just in digging, but in designing, polishing, managing, and marketing. President Dumaboko's administration has tied national identity to economic transformation. Through programs like the Botswana Industrial Skills Academy and the National Processing and Beneficiation Program, the government isn't just changing policy, it's changing possibility. New branding efforts are underway to label finished products as Botswana cut, Botswana polished, and Botswana made. The goal is clear: no longer just a source of materials, but a source of excellence. Meanwhile, foreign companies are being given a choice. Either partner with Botswana in-country or risk being left behind. Several mid-sized firms have already taken the deal, announcing plans to open processing facilities near the Arapa mine and in Gaborone's industrial corridor. These moves come with agreements on local hiring, knowledge transfer, and shared ownership. This isn't protectionism. It's partnership, with purpose. And so far, it's working. While some predicted investor flight, Botswana is seeing increased interest from development banks, regional investors, and even foreign governments looking to diversify their supply chains. But make no mistake, this transition is not easy. Production has slowed. Export revenues dipped in the short term. Infrastructure strains remain. Power generation must increase. Skilled labor must scale. And local markets must absorb the shock of transformation. Still, Botswana is holding the line. The country is sending a message that wealth is not what you dig out of the ground, it's what you build with it. And that message is starting to change minds. International organizations like the UN Economic Commission for Africa and the African Export-Import Bank have praised Botswana's model as a blueprint for sustainable development. Economic analysts are beginning to revise projections, suggesting that if Botswana can maintain its pace, it could not only recover its lost revenues, but triple its long-term gains through value-added exports. What began as a ban is becoming a brand. And what started as a gamble is starting to look like a strategy. The next and final chapter will ask the ultimate question: can Botswana sustain this momentum and inspire a continent-wide economic awakening, or will the forces of resistance pull it back into the old system? Botswana has taken a leap no other African nation has dared to in recent memory. It has challenged the very foundation of global trade, where raw African wealth fuels foreign industries, and replaced it with a new blueprint: process locally, profit nationally. But now, as the dust settles, the question remains: can it last? The export ban was never meant to be just a shock to the system, it was designed to be a full-scale transformation. And for the past several months, Botswana has been building the infrastructure to make that vision real. Processing centers are nearing completion. Diamond cutting labs are hiring. Copper refining plants are breaking ground. International investors are not walking away, they're leaning in, cautiously but curiously. This was unexpected. Most predicted chaos, capital flight, and backlash. But Botswana's message has resonated beyond economics. It has tapped into something deeper: dignity. For decades, Africa's relationship with the world has been transactional: dig, export, repeat. But what if the continent decided that wasn't enough? What if countries like Botswana not only wanted to extract resources but to control the value they create? That's the shift we're witnessing. In Paris and London, policymakers are adjusting diplomatic language. In Mumbai and Antwerp, buyers are recalculating margins. In Washington and Brussels, analysts are debating whether this Botswana model signals a new era of economic sovereignty for Africa. But transformation always brings friction. And Botswana is now at a crossroads. The short-term pain is real. Some mines remain idle. Employment in raw export logistics has declined. Foreign firms still hesitate to fully commit. Training programs are racing against time to produce a skilled workforce. And critics, both domestic and foreign, are waiting for the first major failure. They say, it's too ambitious. Too idealistic. Too fast. But history isn't made by waiting. President Dumaboko's administration knows the cost of dependence. They've seen what happens when global markets crash and a nation has nothing to fall back on but raw stones. That's why they're pushing forward. Slowly but surely, Botswana is rewriting its economy, one factory, one skill, one product at a time. And it's not just about diamonds anymore. The country is exploring domestic processing for copper, nickel, coal, and even rare earths. The goal is clear: no more exporting poverty. Only exporting power. What began as a defensive maneuver, protecting the economy from collapse, has become a statement of purpose. Botswana isn't isolating itself from the world. It's inviting the world to meet it on equal terms. That's why countries like Namibia, Zambia, and Ghana are now sending delegations to study Botswana's approach. The African Union is considering adopting shared beneficiation policies. And the phrase, processed in Africa, is no longer a dream, it's becoming a demand. But perhaps the biggest change is the way ordinary Botswana now see their role. For the first time in decades, the wealth beneath their feet feels like it belongs to them. Not just in theory, but in practice. In new jobs. In new industries. In new pride. This is not just economic policy, it's nationhood in motion. Still, the risks remain. If the infrastructure lags, if global buyers grow impatient, if political will falters, the experiment could stall. But if Botswana succeeds, even modestly, it will have proven something powerful. That value is not just found in the ground, it's created in the choices a nation makes. And that's the message echoing far beyond its borders. For generations, Africa has asked the world to see its potential. Now, it's showing it. Not with aid requests, but with policy. Not with dependency, but with defiance. Not with slogans, but with strategy. The Botswana diamond ban was never just about stones, it was about sovereignty. And now, one small country may have lit the match that sparks a continent-wide economic revolution. The only question is, who's next?